Hello. Yeah, yeah.
Good morning,
Good morning.
participants. Session will start now. Sir, good morning, sir. Sanjay, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Sanjay, sir, are you audible?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I can
Hello.
hear you. Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible. You can start now, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, sir.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So welcome to the second day of this FTP workshop on 5G communication technologies for Internet of Things. And today I'm going to talk about a completely. We're going to shift gears. I'm going to talk a little bit into what IoT is and then what are the technologies related to IoT. And we will take a look at what is ambient backscatter communications. Okay, so before we get into it, once again I extend a warm welcome to all the participants. Thank you for being here. So yesterday we took a look at what 5G is, right? We had a recap of what 1G to 4G was, and then what 5G is, and then we looked at some of the technologies that are important in the context of 5G communication systems, right? So I talked about several technologies such as massive MIMO, that is multiple input, multiple output systems. And I talked about D2D communications. I talked about caching. I talked about cognitive radios. I talked about millimeter wave communication, right? And then so on and so forth. And then today, I'm going to talk about one application or one technology that is exclusively used for 5G in the context of Internet of Things, and that is ambient backscatter communications. Okay, so this talk is going to be divided into two parts. Today, we are going to take a look at some of the fundamentals of ambient backscattering communications, what exactly it is, and so on, and how is it useful in the context of Internet of Things. And also, we will look at some of the challenges associated with ambient backscattering communications. And the remaining part will happen tomorrow, where I will be discussing about the applications of ambient backscattering communications in the context of research and also some present day 5G technology problems, that is research problems. Okay, so just very quickly, my name is Sanjeev. I work as a professor at the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering at PES University. And to know more about me, you can click on the uh, link which is given in red color here, and also you can reach out to me at sanjeevg@pes.edu. So today, here is the outline of the talk that we have today. We will start with the introduction and motivation for this ambient backscattering communication. Okay, so this ambient backscattering communication is abbreviated as ABC, ambient backscattering communication. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use everywhere. And we will start by looking at a little bit about Internet of Things, because this workshop ultimately is for the applications of Internet of Things. So we will take a look at what are the Internet of Things and some of the key features in Internet of Things and the requirements in Internet of Things. Uh, I think a more elaborated introduction to Internet of Things will happen on the fourth day. But for now, it's just some very key concepts in IoT. And we will look at, in particular, radio frequency harvesting. Okay, so radio frequency harvesting is very essential. We will see what this means and why is this required, and what are the different types of RF energy harvesting algorithms, wireless power transfer, WPT, WPCN, and the most famous one of all, that is simultaneous wireless information and power transfer, SWIFT. Okay, so we will see what this is, and we will get into backscattering communication. What is backscatter communication? We will talk about that, and we'll talk about the types of backscatter communication, which is monostatic, bistatic, and ambient. And in particular, we'll take a look at ambient backscattering communication, and then we will see what are the challenges and future trends in ABC, and then we will conclude. So there is, if somebody's microphone is on, can you please put it on mute? Thank you. So we'll start by looking at what is Internet of Things. Okay, this is the introduction to Internet of Things. Internet of Things basically is like connecting every gadget, electronic gadget, to everything else. Basically, every gadget will talk to everything else. For example, see this: there is a satellite here, and that through satellite communication may try to track wherever the truck which is carrying your load or your shipment or your the delivery package is going. Okay, and that is going to be monitored, and that will talk to the shop which is delivering your package and things like that. So that is one application where you have that, and then you also have like this. There is smartwatch, there is all sort of electronic gadgets that are a part of body sensor networks, and these are all they all talk to each other basically on one side. And on the other side you have smart lights, smart traffic lights like this, servers which talk to each other, and basically everybody talks to everybody else, starting from macroscopic things like major big things such as satellites and other things, to all the way up to smartwatches in terms of sizes. And also in terms of geography, satellites are like really really far, and probably a smartwatch is closer to you. And things like smart truck, sorry, things like the truck which is delivering your package and which is like moving. Okay, all these things will talk to each other. So that's the idea of Internet of Things. Everybody talks to everybody else when it comes to electronic gadgets. And here is the motivation for us to consider any technology that is related for uh, IoT. So here is a data where on the y-axis, what is given here is the devices which are connected across the world in billions, and here is the timeline. Okay, so this is time. So you see that in 2014, something like 13 devices, 13 connected devices, 13 billion devices were actually connected, and the projection is like going up and up and up, and then now we are somewhere here, and in 2020 it's like it's gone up to 25, and then by 2021 it's kind of expected or estimated to reach up to 27 or 28 connected devices, which is phenomenally large as compared to like what we started out here, which was something like 13, or it's almost like twice. Okay, so it's growing very very fast. So the number of devices that are getting connected is only increasing with the time. And here you have different types of networks which are connected with each other. For example, the landlines or the fixed phones, they constitute these yellow images, and nobody is buying landlines, right? So therefore you can actually see that the number of landlines are not increasing at all. Okay, and when it comes to mobile phones, which constitute this particular orange box, the number of mobile phones is also kind of increasing, but not to a very large extent. Okay, so, and if you look at PCs and tablets, that is also kind of increasing, but not very very much. Now the main contribution is coming from this green area and then this blue area. And if you compare that here, you can see that that is related to Internet of Things. Okay, so the green area, the blue area is cellular Internet of Things. That is Internet of Things working in a cellular environment. Okay, whereas the green area that is connected here is actually non-cellular IoT. Okay, and non-cellular IoT is much you know higher. That is the number of devices that are using non-cellular IoT or ad hoc IoT. Okay, something which is not restricted to a cell. Okay, that is actually much higher as compared to everything else. And you see that the ratio is also like significantly high, from 4.2 to 14.2, and then so on and so forth. So in general, what happens is that I'm sorry. So yeah, in general, what happens is that the cellular IoT is dominating. Oh, sorry, the IoT, both cellular IoT and non-cellular IoT is dominating. Okay, so it comes to number of devices which keep on increasing with time. So basically, that's why IoT is important. Internet of Things are important. So let us try to understand what Internet of Things are. So the Internet of Things are basically ubiquitous systems that acquire and convey information without human intervention. So these devices are supposed to be smart, okay? And once you install them and then keep it ready, right? So then the exchange of information, data transfer, data processing, everything should happen without, you know, a lot of human intervention. Okay, so they are supposed to be ubiquitous, and that's the one of the main features of Internet of Things. Okay, and the reason why, you know, Internet of Things has become kind of the happening thing today is because of recent advances in wireless communications and miniaturization of in computing and sensing components. So these components have started to reduce. I mean, the size of the components is reducing, and also the advances in wireless communications related technology is increasing. Okay, so that is one of the reason why Internet of Things is becoming popular. Okay, and also we have the main motivating technology behind Internet of Things is what is called as the machine type communication, MTC. Okay, and that is because of the pervasive computing that has led to this. And however, there are some disadvantages for you know, in the context of Internet of Things. The Internet of Things is limited by three factors. Okay, so these are the three factors which will describe how well your system or the Internet of Things ecosystem will work. Okay, number one is the lifespan in terms of the energy availability. Okay, these are all some really, you know, low end low cost sensors. Okay, so you need to make sure that the energy of these sensors will last for a life, I mean, for a long time. What happens is, think of this, if you are looking at, you know, disaster management, or if you deploy some, you know, cheap sensors in the forest to detect forest fire or something like that, right? So if those sensors, if they stop working, then there is no way for you to go find those sensors again and then try to change the battery, right? So that's not going to happen. So it's just, they're all very cheap sensors, so you just throw them somewhere, and then they will serve the purpose till they have a battery, and after that they'll just die down. So lifespan is one of the criterion. The second thing is cost in terms of the number of devices. So the number of devices is going to be enormous. It's going to be very, very large. So therefore the cost associated that with that has to be something which has to take care. It's the cost is going to go up. And the third one is the communication related factor, which is the link availability. So because there are so many number of devices trying to access, you know, the network, there is going to be congestion, and you need to ensure that you have a good throughput or good channel capacity or good spectrum efficiency. At the same time, you should not have congestion. So these are the criteria that people have to look into. So please remember these three criteria. And there are several challenges in the system of Internet of Things. Okay, so some of these challenges include the following. So you have a set of hardware challenges. Okay, so the hardware challenges are as follows. It requires very, very low power during the sleep mode, and then the devices have to be very, very you know, cheap. Basically, they should not be costly. The reason is because what happens is this Internet of Things, they work with, you know, it's like a sensor network basically, but with really large number of sensors. And whenever, you know, the data is not being collected, or whenever the processing is not happening, so then they have to be put in the sleep mode to save energy, because energy is one of the requirements, as I told you. So therefore whenever you put it in sleep, again it requires a very, very low power. So that should be one of the um, challenges, and also the cost should come down. Okay, so then you have a set of challenges which are the standard based challenges, standard for IoT. Okay, so these standards should be publicly and freely available, because, you know, everybody should be able to build their own IoT based network. And you need to have one standard which is like more or less the same throughout the world. So global standards are more relevant in the context of you know, an ecosystem like IoT. Okay. So there is also a set of challenges associated with architectures for IoT. Okay. So any architecture, so it can be cellular, or even it can even be ad hoc or non-cellular type, right? So these architectures should also be, the information about such things also should be open, in the sense that, you know, it should be available freely for everybody to access. And they, because you are looking at several challenges in IoT, one should not restrict to any fixed solution that this is the way in which IoT is going to function. Okay, so it should be more like ad hoc in nature. Try a couple of things, try quite a few number of things, and then try to see which one works at that particular scenario, and then at least for that particular usage, go on with that till some other challenge props up. Okay, and one of the most important challenges in IoT is this one: privacy and security challenges. Okay, so unsecured devices, they, if so there are, some, for example, if you know all these viruses and worms that were developed in early stages in early 2000s, the idea is to hack into somebody's computer and then create multiple copies of the virus by itself. So then what happens is that the computer will start to become slow. So there are these devices, if it is not secure, if nobody knows who is logging in and who is logging out, then unsecured devices may come in and then they can just block, just have to have fun, and then to can cause a great hinder to the communication scenario. So that can also happen. And also this type of suspicious or anomaly behavior for any device which is connected with the IoT has to be detected very early, and that's why detection of such anomalous behavior is also something which is important when it comes to privacy and security. And kind of business related challenges are as follows. Okay, because it has to be something which is more of an ad hoc type of an environment. There are going to be uncertainties in business models and applicable scenarios, and and because of this unsustainability, there is going to be a big challenge. So that is on the business side, which may not be that important for us as engineers. And on the technical side, you have these things. You need low cost devices or low cost network with the reliable connectivity is also something which is very important. And any other technologies that you're going to add will only along with the nice things that the technology is going to bring, it will also bring problems. Okay, so your network should also be able to cope up and adapt to anything that is brought in newly very soon. Okay, so that's another challenge. So these are some of the main challenges associated in IoT. So to summarize, some of these challenges are put in the category of generic challenges here. So security is one of the top constraint, as I told you, right? So security is a major issue in IoT, because there are so many people connected, and then you will never know who is malicious and who is not. And the connectivity is another major constraint. You need to be continuously connected so that you don't miss out on the data, right? In IoT, if you miss out on a data, and that data is gone, right? So it's just the data changes very, very fast. And also compatibility is an issue. So if you have an existing network, then IoT should be able to get along with that network in an ad hoc fashion very smoothly. Okay, and standardization, as I told you, is another important thing, which should be open, and it should also be kind of global. And the last one is data collection and given So this is again important. It should be very clear as to when do you want to collect data and when do you want to process it. And given the energy constraint, given the energy budget that you have, how much of the energy should you be spending on data collection? How much of it should be you should be able to spend on processing? Okay, so these are the budget split up, and then these are some of the things that one has to take care in IoT. So coming to the energy, I told you that energy is one of the main things. So there is one alternate way is to actually see, energy consumption is something that you cannot avoid. You can optimize it in some way. So along with that, it would be nice if you can bring in energy harvesting type ideas onto Internet of Things. So that is, you harvest energy for your own resource based on the available environment. Okay. So how do you do that is the thing here. So RF, radio frequency energy harvesting, is a promising potential solution for perpetual energy supplies to low power devices, which are for IoT. Okay, so the low power devices can, as harvest energy as and when they spend energy. So there are three main types of energy harvesting. Okay, so is as follows. So these are the three main categories. Number one is the wireless power transfer. Okay, so in wireless power transfer, what happens is the transmitter transmits energy to the user device without any information. Okay, think of your wireless charger, right? So if you have a phone with the wireless charger, this is what it is doing. It's just doing wireless power transfer. Okay, so it is basically charging without any wire through the RF. The second one is wireless powered communication network, WPCN. Okay, in this, what happens is that the devices will be able to harvest energy and then use that particular energy to actively transmit data. So you transmit the energy and immediately you use it to transmit data. That's what happens in WPCN. And there is also another category called as the simultaneous wireless information and power transfer, where the device transfers energy and information both at the same time. So these are the three different categories. To understand it in a much more better way, let's look at a picture. Here are the three things. So let us look at the picture one by one. So let us start by looking at the last picture here. Okay, so this is WPT. So in WPT, what happens is there is a power transmitter, and there are several users, user 1, user 2, all the way up to user n, right? So then what happens is that all these users will receive power RF energy from the power transmitter on a wireless medium. So this is just going to be energy. So these users will get powered up. That's in wireless power transfer. And coming to this WPCN, so what happens in this case is that first, every user will first harvest the energy, okay, that is through this link, and it will use that harvested energy to transmit information second time. Okay, so the first harvest the energy and then do information transmission. The same thing happened with other users also. Okay, so the dashed line indicates harvesting of energy transfer, that is harvesting of energy, and the solid line indicates that it's a information transfer. So that's what happens in WPCN. And now let's come to the last category, which is the SWIPT, SWIPT. So simultaneous wireless information and power transfer. Okay, so here you have flexibility. So for example, you see that user 2 is only harvesting energy from this particular transmitter. User 1 is only doing information transfer, and user n is actually getting the energy also and getting the information also. So it can be simultaneously information transfer and energy transfer will happen. So that's the idea in the SWIPT technology. Okay, so these are the three different aspects. Okay, so in general, what happens is that in low cost, low power networks, for example, Internet of Things, there can be several limitations. Okay, when you use RF energy harvesting. Number one, the users may have to require a long time to harvest enough energy to transmit data. So what happens is if you use a lot of time to harvest energy, then you won't have time to transmit data. Right? Any time that you save is important. So that's one disadvantage. The second thing is about resource scheduling and machine-to-machine communications in SWIPT. So given that the RF transmitter has so much power budget or energy budget, how would you divide that among different users? Okay, so that's another problem, which is the resource scheduling, and how much of it should be used for energy harvesting, how much of it should be used for information transmission. That's another problem. Okay, and also because you have RF transmission components such as analog to digital converters, digital to analog converters, and the entire RF chain, basically what is called as RF chain in industry. So these RF transmission components, they increase the cost and complexity of the circuitry. So therefore this ambient backscattering communication is introduced as an alternative promising solution to improve the network performance. Okay, so what we have seen so far is that in IoT, energy is one of the main criterion, and if you use RF energy harvesting, then you will be able to gain some energy that you can use for transmission in IoT. But however, RF based energy harvesting has these following three disadvantages that I just now mentioned. Okay, so let us see what is backscattering communication. So backscattering communication is something which can be classified into three major types based on their architectures. Okay, backscattering communication is if anybody has worked on the RFIDs, if you have done research on RFIDs, then you will know that RFIDs actually use backscattering communication. Okay, so there are three different types of backscattering communication. So let us try to understand one of them, each of them one by one. So we have something called as the monostatic backscattering communications, MBC. We have bistatic backscattering communication, BBC, and we have ambient backscattering communication, ABC. Okay, so interested people can actually look into this particular reference that is given here. So let us look at what these are. So here is a picture which tells you what are the different types of backscattering communications that happen. Okay, now here is a reader. Okay, so what it does is it will transmit, let's say that it transmits a sine wave to this receiver. So this is the transmitter here. Okay, and what you have here is the receiver. Okay, so the transmitter will receive first transmit a sine wave or some waveform to the receiver. Now the receiver will either reflect the signal back or it will not reflect the signal back. Okay, so the transmitter will transmit a signal. The receiver will either reflect it or not reflect it. If the reflector will reflect it, if the receiver will reflect it, the transmitter reads it as 1. If it doesn't reflect it, it will read it as 0. Okay, now you see that you are getting some kind of modulation here. Okay, so this is the idea behind monostatic backscattering communication. Okay, so that is what is given here. The reader will actually transmit a signal to the backscatter transmitter, and what it does is it will just reflect that signal. If the reflection is there, then the reader will read it as 1. If the reflection is not there, then it will read it as 0. So if a backscattering transmitter wants to transmit 1 0 1 0 1 1, then what it has to do is reflect, not reflect, reflect, and reflect. Okay, so that's the idea of backscattering, monostatic backscattering communication. You observe that this is what is called as a reader. This is in RFID. Okay, so that's why this terminology, reader and transmitter. So in RFID, this is what happens. So there is a very signal which is transmitted, and we call this as backscattering transmitter because it is transmitting ones and zeros by either doing a reflection or not reflection. Okay, so this is what happens in the monostatic backscattering communication system. Now let's come to bistatic backscatter. In bistatic backscatterer, remember here it was transmitting some information, right? That information is transmitted by some other carrier. Okay, so what will happen is this carrier will transmit the sine wave or some wave to the backscattering transmitter. Okay, and the backscattering transmitter will either reflect this to the receiver or not reflect it. If this wave is reflected towards this side, so it is treated as 1, and if it is not reflected, then it is treated as 0. Okay, you get the idea. Now what is the advantage of bistatic backscatterer is because in the monostatic backscatterer, if you want this type of a system to work, then this distance d between the transmitter and this has to be very, very small. Whereas here, if the carrier emitter is set separately outside somewhere, then what happens is this distance can actually be larger between these two. This can probably be a base station or something which can transmit over long distances. Okay, that long distance is not possible here. So that is the advantage with the bistatic backscatter communication systems. And the communication is happening here, okay, in terms of ones and zeros. 1 whenever it is transmitting and 0 whenever it is not transmitting. And now let us come to ambient backscattering communication. In ambient backscattering communication, what happens is you already have some communication happening. Okay, think of this like the mobile station, and sorry, this is the base station and this is the mobile station. There is already communication happening. So there is already signal which is coming here, and because the signal is everywhere, right? If you bring in a transmitter here close by, this transmitter will also receive the signal, correct? Because the signal is everywhere, right? It's wireless. So then what it can do is it can transmit, it can either reflect this particular signal to this dedicated receiver or not reflect it. Whenever it reflects it, this guy treats it as 1, and if it is not reflecting, then it will treat it as 0. Okay, I hope that it is clear. So it is very important for us to understand this. In ambient, what happens is you have some source which is not even a part of your network, and somebody else will also receive that signal provided that he is close by, and he will either reflect or not reflect. Whenever it is reflecting, then it is 1. If it is not reflecting, then it is 0. Okay, so that is the reason, that is the thing in ambient backscattering communication. Anyway, we will look at this in more detail later in the later slides. So these are the three main differences between different backscattering systems. Let us look at all of them one by one. In backscattering communications, monostatic backscattering communication, what happens is that the signal is transmitted here, it will go here, gets reflected, if at all this guy is reflecting, and then comes back here, right? Correct. So there is what is called as a round trip path loss. That means to say that you have loss in one direction here, and you also have loss in the other direction here. Okay, so that is the problem in monostatic backscattering communications. And also there is something called as the doubly near far problem. Okay, doubly near far problem is something that probably you would have known in the context of wireless communication. Near far is known, and doubly near far is also a problem. Okay, for example, if something is here, some obstacle or something is, let's say it is here, then it will be a problem. You won't have any kind of communication at all. And if there is an obstacle which is only till here, let's say, only till here, then this communication will happen, whereas this communication will not happen. It will be on one side and the other side will not happen. Okay, so there are problems like that. That is the set of problems in monostatic backscattering communication systems. If you come to bistatic backscattering communication systems, okay, first thing is that the round trip path loss is mitigated, because communication will only happen from here to here, right? It will either get reflected or it will not get reflected. So there is no round trip path loss. So that is one advantage. However, and also you can also work with the fact that the performance can be improved by placing the carrier emitters at some optimal locations. Okay, so this can also be done, and the doubly near far problem that I just mentioned can also be mitigated. However, if you look at the overall framework, that is, if you can have multiple things also for the same carrier emitter, you can have one more transmitter which is here. He will also get it. He can either do reflection or not reflection to this particular guy. So it can transmit 1 or 0 depending on whether this is reflecting or not reflecting. So these type of things are possible. Okay, so that the overall deployment cost is actually less than MBCS, the monostatic backscattering communication systems. And now coming to ambient backscattering communication systems, I told that the carrier emitters are separated from backscattering receivers. For example, you can use all the available carrier emitters are ambient RF sources. Okay, so for example, it can be a TV tower. TV tower will be continuously transmitting TV signals. So if you have a device which is closer to the TV tower, that will also get that signal. All it has to do is either reflect it or not reflect it to its receiver, and it will be able to transmit ones and zeros. And it can even be cellular base station. It can be Wi-Fi access points. Okay, there are several ambient sources. And the advantages of this as compared to BBCS is that there is no dedicated RF source in case of ambient backscattering communication in comparison with bistatic backscattering communication systems. Okay, and also efficient utilization of spectrum resource is possible in this case. Okay. And however, there are disadvantages. The disadvantages is that ambient RF signals are unpredictable. Okay, for example, the cellular system, you never know whether given in an area, right, how much of power is being dissipated from the cellular base station. It is going to be unpredictable. If the environment is also something which is varying, then it is going to be dynamic. And also there is one other main disadvantage. I'll go here. The main disadvantage is if this guy gets some signal from here, and if he's reflecting that signal here, okay, look at the fact that this guy is also close to the carrier emitter, so or the ambient backscatter, ambient source. So this guy will also get the signal from here, right? So there is also an interference from the ambient RF source that has to be eliminated. So that is another main issue that is there in ambient backscattering communication systems. Okay, and the design and development of ABC is often complicated because you cannot control ambient RF sources. They just give you some signal, and then you have to work with those signals. That's all. Okay. So let us see how backscattering transmitters work. Okay. So the backscattering transmitter, please don't confuse this with the RF transmitter. Okay. So there is an RF transmitter, as I told you. Okay. So this is transmitting the RF signal. There is a backscattering transmitter, and there is a backscattering receiver. So what this does is this is transmitting the signal, and this guy is either only reflecting or not reflecting. So if it is reflecting, then it is treated as 1, and if it is not reflecting, then it is treated as 0. Okay. So I'm actually talking about this transmitter. This is what is meant by the backscattering transmitter. Okay. So the backscattering transmitter, how is ones and zeros transmitted? So the way in which you do that is by controlling the reflection coefficient of the antenna, transmit antenna. Okay. So the reflection coefficient of the antenna is given by gamma I is equal to Zi minus Za conjugate divided by Zi plus Za. Okay, where Za is the antenna impedance, and star is the complex conjugate operator, and I is equal to 1 or 2, that represents the switch state. Okay. So you have either I is equal to 1 or 2. So therefore you have either gamma 1 or gamma 2. Gamma 1 is the state when you are reflecting, and gamma 2 is the state whenever you are not reflecting. Okay. So to give you an example, or to give you a pictorial representation, this is how it is. So there is an RF source which is here, that is the, let's say it's a base station, and it is transmitting the signal to the antenna, right? So this antenna captures it, and then what it does is it will either reflect it or not reflect it. If it goes to the state 1, the state 1 is here, that means it is switching, this switch is closed like this. So then the impedance becomes 1. Okay. So then that same reflected signal will be transmitted like this to the receiver. Okay. Whereas if it decides not to transmit, then the switch will close the other way. Okay. The switch will close this way, and this becomes 0. So whatever is received, it just directly goes to the ground. So nothing is transmitted. Okay. So that's the idea. So you just tune your antenna impedance in such a way that you switch between either Z1 or Z2. You can design your impedances Z1 and Z2 accordingly. You are either reflecting or you are just transmitting it to ground. Okay, so that's the idea. Okay. Now, how about the backscattering receivers, right? In the backscattering receivers, so remember again that the idea is as follows. Here is the RF source. Okay, here is the backscattering transmitter. So it just gets a signal, and this will either reflect it or not reflect it, and there is a receiver here. So when I say backscattering receiver, I mean this one. Okay, what will this do? So there are two ways in which the backscattering receivers work. One is the analog to digital conversion, or the other one is what is called as the averaging mechanism. So we will see how these two things work. In analog to digital conversion, what happens is that the received signal y of n can be written as follows. Okay, y of n is equal to x of n plus alpha times b of n plus x of n plus w of n. So I'll tell you what these x of n and other things are. Okay, so here is an RF source. Okay, so this is the backscattering transmitter, and this one is the backscattering receiver, let's say. So this is transmitting some signal, and because this is also close by, this will also get that signal. And now this will either reflect the signal or not reflect the signal. Okay, so this part is x of n. So the x of n is the direct link interference. Okay, and this part is actually, this part is a direct link interference, and this part is the information that is transmitted from the transmitter. I will call this as I, information. Okay, so what it will do is it will just scale down, right? So it is just reflecting the same signal. What it does is it will just receive a scaled version of that particular signal, and this one is noise. Okay, so this is the received signal model at the receiver. So as I told you, x of n are the samples because of the direct link interference. For example, TV signals, if the ambient source is TV. W of n is noise. Alpha is the attenuation of the backscattered signals, and B of n are the bits that are transmitted by the backscattering transmitter. For example, if B of n is 1, then what you get is alpha times x of n, right? Because B of n is 1. And if B of n is 0, then this entire term will become 0. Correct? So that is how the received signal model is done. Now, how do you do detection after analog to digital conversion is as follows. You look at the energy of the signal. So n represents the number of samples that you get. Okay. And 1 by n summation I going from 1 to n absolute value of n square, this will give you the energy, sample energy. Okay. So you substitute for y of n as x of n plus alpha b of n plus w of n. Okay. And b takes either the value 0 or 1, depending on whether it was reflected or not reflected. We have to find out whether b is 1 or not. Now, if you expand this, use the regular formula a plus b plus c the whole square type, right? Just expand this one out. And if you expand this, then you will get something like this. And we assume that w of n and x of n are uncorrelated with each other. What does that mean is that the expected value of x of n and w of n is going to be equal to 0. They are uncorrelated with each other. Okay. In fact, this condition comes because of the fact that expectation of w of n is equal to 0. Anyway, so now if you expand that, then you would get an expression which is given here as follows. This is the energy. Okay. Now, if P is the average power of the from the transmitter, that is from the RF transmitter. Okay. So then what you have here is this is the average power P. Okay. So depending on whether P is whatever the value of P is, right? Depending on whether B is 1 or 0, you will get either 1 plus alpha square times P or just 1 times P. Correct? So this is what you'd get. And so what you do is you basically compare this to a threshold, and you declare whenever this guy. I'll just write it here. So what you do is you take this 1 by n summation y of n the whole square and compare it to a threshold. If it is greater than the threshold, you declare 1. If it is less than the threshold, then you declare 0. That is what you're doing. Okay. And however, the one thing that you should note is that the analog to digital conversion, it consumes a significantly large amount of power. So in any RF chain, ADC is the one which consumes a lot of power. So therefore, it might not be feasible to use ADC in low power networks such as IoT. Okay, so therefore we look into the averaging mechanism. Averaging mechanism is the second technique. So in this case, what happens is there is no analog to digital conversion at all. Everything happens in the analog domain. So let's say that this is the backscattering signal that is received from the backscattering transmitter. Let's say that backscattering transmitter is somewhere here, and it is reflecting whenever it is 1, not reflecting whenever it is 0, reflecting again whenever it is 1, and so on and so forth. So what it does is, on the antenna side, first you collect for some time and then do an averaging, envelope averager using RNC circuit. Okay. And also a simple diode and capacitor circuit. And then after that, after you do the envelope averaging, then you calculate a threshold corresponding to that, and then pass it through a comparator circuit, and then compare it to whether it is, if it is greater than the comparator level, then you declare it as 1, otherwise you declare it as 0. Okay, so that's about it. So that's the main idea in the averaging mechanism. So what is interesting to note is that in this entire circuitry, there is no digital analog to digital conversion is not there. Sample and hold circuit, all these things are not at all there. Everything is analog, right? So because everything is analog, you will save a lot of power. And these are all like very, very simple circuitry. So you will require very, very simple, very, very low power for all these things. Okay, so that is one way with which you can actually decode your backscattered signal to find out whether 1 was transmitted or 0 was transmitted. Okay, and how would you design the antenna for backscattering transmitter and backscattering receiver is from the following. Okay, so the maximum distance between the backscattering transmitter and the RF, that is RF is the base station, please remember this one, and the transmitter, backscattering transmitter, there's going to be a backscattering receiver also, right? So this distance is what we are looking at. this maximum distance can be r. And this is the formula. I mean, this is a very simple formula that you can get from the Friese equation directly, where lambda is the wavelength, pt is the power transmitted from the RF source, gt and gr are the antenna gains of RF source as well as the transmitter, right? And there are several other factors like this. So this is a very simple way to tell you what is the maximum distance. Okay, so if it is beyond this particular distance, if you consider any distance which is greater than r, then the signal won't reach at the transmitter with enough power. So it has to be within the vicinity of the base station. Okay, so that is what is governed by this particular equation. Okay, and the operating frequency for the ambient backscattering communication systems can be something like this. For the low frequency band, it is here in this range. For the high frequency band, it is more than 13 0.56 megahertz, and ultra high frequency band is much higher, closer to gigahertz, 860 megahertz to 960 megahertz, and super high frequency band, which is where current Wi-Fi systems operate, 2.4 gigahertz to 2.5 gigahertz one band, and 5.725 gigahertz to 5.875 gigahertz. So this is the other band. Okay. And the nice thing about this is what you should always remember: backscattering transmit antennas do not contain any active RF circuitry. That is, your ADC, analog to digital conversion, and those things are not at all there. So therefore, you will be able to save a lot of power by using ambient backscattering communication. And the power consumption is negligibly small at higher frequency. So when you start to go from low frequency to super high frequency, then you will start to experience lesser and lesser power consumption. And as I told you, advantage of getting into SFF, super high frequency band, is that one, the power consumption is going to be low, and backscattering communication systems, if you devise that in the 2.4 gigahertz and then beyond, that band, then it can the backscattering communication systems can coexist with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi devices also. Okay, so for example, if there is some Bluetooth communication happening from here to here, right, you can bring your own transmitter here closer to this and a receiver here. This will also get the signal, right? So that signal can be reflected here or not reflected here. Okay, so you can have your own communication between the transmitter and receiver here, and this communication is actually coming for free. Okay, you are not doing anything. You are just going. The transmitter component is already here existing, and you are not using any of the active RF components. So you are just using averaging mechanism to establish a connection between this transmitter and this receiver. Okay, and you have other advantages such as antenna size is reduced. And more bandwidth is available because a lot of bands there are empty in high frequency band, and because IoT, Internet of Things, is also looking at devices which are very close to each other, right? You can afford to operate at high frequency bands, because at high frequency bands you'll be able to support distances up to a few tens of meters, okay, which is good enough for IoT applications. Also, there are several other things. I think I won't have time to look at these things, so let me just skip some of the things here. Okay, I will directly get into by static. I'll directly get into ambient backscattering communication in a little bit more. Okay, more detail. So we will try to see what ambient backscattering communication is with a few examples, and then in a slightly greater detail. The first ambient backscattering communication system was introduced in this particular paper. Okay, that is very recently. But however, backscattering communication is there for a long time. Backscattering communication is like a 50-year-old topic, but ambient backscattering communication is only recent. Okay, and as I told you, ambient backscattering communication systems, they communicate by using the signals from the ambient RF sources, for example, TV towers or cellular towers, and so on and so forth. Okay, and there are three major components. We will see them here. Okay, there are three major components. I think let's get into that thing here. Yeah. So the major components are as follows. Maybe this picture will help. Okay, so there is an RF source. Okay, so this RF source is talking to its own legacy receivers here. This is the communication which is happening. Okay, and there is this is the ambient backscattering communication transmitter. Okay, so what it does is this will get into the vicinity of this particular source, and this is the ABC receiver. Okay, now this source will transmit some signal which you get at both these places. Okay, even this will receive and even this will receive. So what this ABC transmitter does is it will either reflect this particular signal back to here, all the way here, or it will not reflect. Whenever it gets reflected, this is treated as 1, and if it doesn't reflect, then it is treated as 0. So it will either reflect, which you count as 1, or not reflect, which you count as 0. So let us look at one example through this particular picture. If you want to transmit, let's say 0, 1, 0, 0, and so on. So look at this. If it is 0, then there is no transmission between tag and reader. Okay, tag is the ambient backscattering transmitter, and reader is the ambient backscattering receiver. Okay, if there is transmission of 0, then there is no look at this here in this particular tag between tag and reader. Whenever there is 1, there is a reflection. Whenever there is 0, there is no reflection. Okay, I'll just play it one more time. Whenever there is 0, there is no reflection. If there is a 1, there is a reflection. Okay, 0, no reflection. 0 again, no reflection. 1, there is a reflection. 1 again, there is a reflection. 0, there is no reflection, and 1, there is reflection. So that is how it works. Okay, so this is the example for ambient backscattering communication. What are the advantages of this? The advantages of this is this entire communication that I just described here in this particular example, this is coming for free. Okay, this entire communication is coming for free. And why is that? Because there is no active RF components on the reader, number one, and there is no source also. Source is also something which has already been present. It is there in the ambient environment, right? So that's the reason why this is very, very useful. There is no dedicated RF source, number one. Number two is that you'll have low power consumption and system costs because you don't have ADC and other power hungry power hungry devices. Okay, and all the backscatter components that you work with, for example, you looked at that envelope averaging, right? So those are all very, very cheap components, and they are also very low power. So that is the set of advantages that you have. And the set of challenges that you have is that ambient communication, ambient signal is unpredictable and dynamic. So you will have to rely on this particular signal, right? If this signal itself is not good, then you will be in trouble. Okay, and it's difficult to achieve a stable and optimal performance. You will also have effect of direct link interference from the ambient source. And there are other issues as well, security issues, right? What I mean by security issues is that instead of this, if you have somebody else who is closer to the tag, let's say that this is also another receiver, he also will be able to see the reflection and no reflection. So then if you are transmitting 0110 for this guy will also read 0110, right? So therefore there is no security as such for now. So the security also has to be employed. So this ambient backscattering communication is a technology which is extensively used for low power applications and low range applications such as IoT. Okay, basically machine type communications based IoT is it is extremely important to save energy and cost. Okay, so although there are several other low cost, low energy standards, such as, for example, IEEE 802.15.4, Bluetooth low energy, Sigfox, LoRa, narrowband IoT, they are all low power, but they are not optimized for self-sustainability. Okay, so therefore, self-sustainability is another nice feature about ambient backscattering communication. There are other applications also, such as smart card, smart city, smart home, and other things. Okay, and also biomedical applications such as wearable, implantable health monitoring devices. So these are several applications for IoT. So what are the characteristics of ambient backscattering communication systems? So here are some of the characteristics. So remember that what the tag is doing, or what this is the transmitter, ABC transmitter, and this is the receiver. So the source is actually getting this and it is reflecting it or not reflecting it, right? So you have for this information to reach here, it has to come through here and then go through here. So there is one channel here, and the other channel is this one. So we have what is called as the keyhole channel or the cascaded channel. So you'll have what is called as the double fading effect or the cascaded fading effect. That means to say that you'll have deeper small scale fading. All your small scale fading models, such as your Nakagami fading or your Rayleigh fading, they will not work. You'll have to have cascaded fading models. Okay, so that's one of the things that you should remember. The second thing is efficiency and enhancement. Okay, so spectrum efficiency is going up because right now this entire thing was devised only for this communication to happen, correct? And this communication, this entire thing communication is basically coming for free, correct? You are not doing anything, you are not paying for anything. You just have the RF source here, you are just modulating it to get your own so any data rate that comes here, right? So all this data is actually coming for free, and therefore your spectrum efficiency increases. And also, given that if you have a power budget or energy budget of E on the RF source part, okay, for the same energy spent, you're actually getting much more higher data rate. So your energy efficiency is also going up. So that's another characteristic of ABC. And you have what it can do is this tag can also, it also has the option of doing reflection directly, or it can harvest the energy, and then after harvesting it can use that particular energy to transmit information from here to here. Basically, I told you about those three things, right? WPT, wireless power transfer, WPCN, and SWIFT, right? So you have the option to do any of these things here. Okay, so that's where rate energy trade-off comes in. If you the rate energy trade-off is as follows: if you harvest energy for a long time, you will have less time to do data transmission, so your data rate comes down. And if you spend a lot of energy doing your doing your communication, enhancing your data rate, then your energy consumption will go up. So therefore, if you want to save out on rate, you will have to give out on energy. If you want to save energy, then you'll have to sacrifice the rate. So this is the rate energy trade-off. So how do you split this? How do you how should you decide as to when should you do energy harvesting and when should you do data transmission? So that is what is a part of what are called as splitting schemes, and these are also important questions. So there is also a set of challenges associated with the direct link interference. Remember, what is the direct link interference? You have the RF source here, right? You have the backscattering transmitter here, backscattering receiver here. Just like how the RF signal is received by the transmitter, receiver also will receive it, because the receiver is also close by. Okay, so this distance cannot be too much. This distance has to be small. Okay, so how do you tackle the direct link interference? There are two ways. This is the direct link interference. Okay, this is DLI. So how do you tackle the direct link interference? Is people have two ways. There are two opinions. Okay, some people think that you should use analog digital domain null steering and beamforming techniques. So you should beamform from the RF source in such a way that this is the RF source, right? So this is the transmitter, this is the receiver. So the beamforming has to be done in such a way that it reaches here, but nothing comes here. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. And you can use methods such as Bartlett processor and other things. Okay, but the problem is if you employ this thing, so then you need to have ADC here. Okay, transmit and receiver beamforming has to be done along with analog to digital conversion circuits. And that's why, that's what I've written here. It requires ADC in the front end. And this is going to be a problem because we have the whole fundamental idea in ambient backscattering communications is that you should not rely on ADC. It should all be low power components. Okay, and that is why this method, many people don't appreciate this particular method. Okay, and also there are some more challenges associated with the receiver design. Okay, so so I think I'm running out of time. So, but is it okay if I take 5 minutes? Okay, I'll just take 5 minutes.
Okay, sir. Okay. Problem, sir.
So how do you know the channel between the RF transmitter and the backscattering transmitter, and the channel between the backscattering transmitter? That is, how do you know this channel and how do you know this channel, right? So these are some of the things that one should keep in mind. A coherent receiver is the one where it can be a maximum likelihood receiver, which is designed based on the available channel state information. If you have all the channel state information, if you know all these channels, then you will be able to design a coherent receiver. And structures such as OFDM, if your RF source is actually transmitting an OFDM signal, that can also be exploited. The other way is to design a non-coherent receiver. A non-coherent receiver is the one which does not rely on the channel state information. In practice, it is very hard for us to acquire the channel state information. So therefore, it makes sense for us to design a non-coherent receiver. And there is something called as the differential scheme for detection using the non-coherent receiver. We will take a look at this receiver tomorrow. But the problem is, non-coherent receiver it gives you less performance as compared to the coherent receiver. And alternatively, you can also think of machine learning based receivers. Okay, machine learning is big today. Everybody's talking about machine learning in all applications. So why should communication fall back? You can think of an option where if you don't have the channel state information, then you could use machine learning based receivers to decode whether 1 was transmitted or 0 was transmitted. And in the literature, classification algorithms with the Gaussian mixture models have been proposed and studied. Okay, so if anybody is interested, I'll point you out to the reference. So to conclude the talk for today, this ambient backscattering communication is recognized as one of the promising key features for 5G communication systems. Exploiting multiple antennas at the tag can actually improve the performance of backscattering communication systems. We will talk more about this in the in tomorrow's lecture. In general, ABC offers a low power design, and it is ideal for applications involving the Internet of Things, because you don't need a source, RF source, and you also don't need active RF components at the receiver side. So a lot of power is saved. Ambient backscattering communications is expected to play a vital role in supporting implementation of 5G communication systems with massive connectivity and low latency. Okay, so that is another additional feature. You will be able to support a large number of devices, and also the latency issue gets resolved as much as possible. And the nice thing about ABC is ABC also has a potential for integration with other 5G related technologies. We will see a little bit more about ABC and other 5G related technologies tomorrow. Okay, so with this, I have taken a couple of minutes more. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your attention. If there are any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them. Hello. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If there are any questions, please go ahead. Was there a loss of connection or something?
No, sir.
It was okay. Okay.
Sir, one question is there, sir. In last slide, ML receiver, is it maximum likelihood or machine learning based? If it is machine learning based, what are the parameters?
Okay. So in the last slide, okay, let me just share the slide again. Okay, I think the question is in this one. So machine learning based receiver, I have looked at it separately. Okay, and here this ML means maximum likelihood. Okay. So machine learning based receiver, the parameters is that there are a lot of things to be done here. It depends on how much of it is not available, how much of knowledge is not available to you. What I suggest is there is one paper which talks about classification with Gaussian mixture models, as I discussed here. You can probably look at this particular paper and you'll get a clarity on how machine learning based receivers are designed for ABC. So are there any other questions?
No, no questions, sir.
Okay, so if there are no questions, then probably I'll just again leave with this remark. If you have any questions in particular that you want to ask, please write an email to me at this particular address. Okay. Otherwise, we have now today talked about the fundamentals and the basics of ambient backscattering communications. Tomorrow we'll talk about its applications and some of specific works. So for tomorrow's, yeah, I think that's about it. So we'll see that tomorrow. No problem. Okay. If there are any questions, please ask me. I'll be here for one more minute. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow.
No more questions, sir, up to now. Again.
Okay, looks like there are no other questions, sir. So I will leave now, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So we will take attendance last day of our workshop. Okay. Yesterday also I told to you. Again, there is no attendance today. So we will take feedback on last day of our workshop.